Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Harriet, for those of you that do not know, and as I said, this is my YouTube channel. I don't know why I always do that. Whenever I've introed a video, I just say my name sometimes. But anyways, today is a bit of a short video. It's just more of a catch up. I feel like I've been gone for so long. I think the last time I was talking to you guys properly was probably back when I launched Oracles, and that had a bit of a short run, but I'm glad to say we'll definitely be back soon. But outside of that, life has changed so much, so that's pretty much what today's video is about. But yeah, without further ado, let me get straight into the video. It's been some time since we last spoke, since we last caught up. I'm trying to remember where we kind of left off. I think by the time I'm filming this, I'm filming and literally posting the same day, just because I've been so eager to catch up with you guys and to be more consistent. But I haven't really wanted to do all the fluff and the filler stuff in between. But yeah, so I think I pretty much left you guys at a point where I had just started working in a new role in a school. Funny enough, not in my local area, but at the time I didn't realise that that's what was going to propel me into what I'm going to be doing in the future by God's grace. So life outside of that has pretty much just looked like getting on board with God's plans rather than trying to sort out my own. Not gonna lie, I'm hot. I don't know why I wore this jumper, like it's still the summer and I'm wearing a jumper. But yeah, so I think the main things before I even get into all of that to speak about are just a few different things that are changing in my life, things that have changed, things that are changing in my life, and just a few reasons as to why I've come back, why I've come back, when I've come back, and what to expect from my channel. Like I said, a lot has changed, and when I last left things off of you guys, I think I was freshly back into teaching. I previously worked in a different role with a Christian charity organisation, and that was great. But I decided to go back into education because I felt a pulling to go back into it. If you see my nails today and they look wild, don't watch that. I feel like I've now drawn attention to them. I dyed my hair today, so they're looking a bit interesting. But yeah, I just felt a pull to go back into education field, and at the time I didn't really understand why. I think there's bits and bobs that have been revealed to me over time, but now it's a lot clearer, the vision and what I'm going to be doing long term, which I don't want to announce just yet, because I feel like, yeah, you don't just say it. Like if you have a secret or journey, you don't just say everything at once. But I'll definitely speak about part of it and what I've learned from the journey so far. But yeah, so at that time I think I feel like you're always growing and understanding more of yourself and coming to a different space, and I feel like I'm in a place now where I'm becoming a lot more sure of myself. I was speaking to my husband literally the other day, and I was saying that I think it's so crazy how we allow people to we show people how to treat us. And I think for so long there was a certain version of myself that people had tried to cap me towards, or had tried to filter me towards, or even tried to box me in as. And it's not until I became a lot more confident in who God's called me to be that I was able to start to put things in place. I'm still figuring that out. I'm still growing. I'm only 26, so I've got a long way to go in terms of developing or figuring out how I want people to address me. But I think there are clear things and clear boundaries and clear expectations that I have for myself now, which exceed the things that had gone on before. So for a bit of context, there's a few things that kind of came up for me over the last set of years, whether that been through grieving, the loss of family, whether that had been through losing out on opportunities because of the complacency that I was in, whether that had been on just simply being disobedient, and that was shown through procrastination and not doing the things that God had told me to do. There's a lot that I have now learned, and I've still got a long way to go as well. There's a lot that I've learned and a lot that I'm learning in terms of intentionality and why God does what he does and when he does it. I think naturally, by God's grace, there's a lot of things that I had been able to achieve or accomplish or experience from a younger age just because of the journey that God has me on and the life that he's given me. But I think sometimes that can often mean that there's other areas that were neglected and weren't really looked into. And I think I've always been somebody who wanted to achieve so much within my career, and within how people understand me as a person outside of my family, my friends, my marriage. And I think I'm now in a place where I'm ready to share, I'm ready to open up, again with boundaries, and I'm ready to express what life looks like, which is why I said, let me give you guys the genesis of what today's video is really about. So as I transition in life, I'm literally, as we speak, I'm literally a few days away from being married to a minister, which is crazy, and something that, if anybody knows me, I literally said, God, there's a lot of things. Short space of being an adult, there's a few things that I feel like I have seen, observed, just personally about myself, and a few things that I wanted to confront this year before I came back to YouTube, before I stepped into this next chapter of my life where a lot is about to change. One of those things was just waiting for that all clear and wanting a 10 billion reassurances, not even from humans, but from God, that I was in the right position or in the right place. And I think unfortunately or fortunately, I've experienced a lot of things that made me have to mature a lot quicker than my peers or counterparts. So there's a lot that I have had to navigate. And although that's positive, because there are things that I've taken on board that have helped me navigate adulting and life and difficult situations, there were some negative things that I had to confront that I wasn't so proud of and I wasn't so happy to have adapted throughout my years of life. One of them was procrastination and waiting for 10 billion yeses before I took a step. And that wasn't from humans, because thank God, and I say this in all humility, I'm not one who needs humans to affirm me or approve of my actions. But I would definitely say that I am one who doesn't like making a step without God blessing it, or doesn't like making a step in vain. But I would say the negative thing about that, or not so negative, but the issue with that is sometimes God has said yes, or a lot of the times I realized that God was saying yes. But I was just procrastinating, not even because He hadn't given me an all clear, but because I didn't know what those next steps looked like. And because I didn't know what the next steps looked like, it had been quite scary to navigate life from a different perspective. So it's crazy because growing up, I was quite a spontaneous person. If you said go on a trip here, I would do it. If you said, do you want to go and jump off a cliff tomorrow? Not literally a cliff, God forbid, but abseil down a cliff, I would have said yeah. But I realized that the older that I got, excuse me, the more fear started to become a thing. And it's crazy because the Bible speaks about having faith over fear, and that faith as small as a mustard seed can move mountains. But it felt like faith, and having that, especially in a space like YouTube, especially in the creative field, especially in my workplace, was such a negative thing to the eye that didn't understand it or see it or hear it. And I'm talking about people that are unbelievers, which takes me to my next point. Something that I told God about this year and about how I want to live my life moving forward is that I'm not going to do anything if it means that God is not seen. Meaning that even if you don't hear me say the name of Jesus 10 billion times in my channel moving forward, or my content, or when you meet me, I want my life to speak of Jesus, which again meant speaking about and addressing and acknowledging the parts of my life that didn't look like Jesus and how painful they were, but also acknowledging where I had left God out of the equation. I feel like no matter what position you're in life, it's very easy to think that, yeah, I always have God at the center point. I always have God at the vocal point of every decision I make, leader, child, boy, woman, whatever. But I think the older I get, the more I realize that even the leaders, even the people, even the adults are still figuring it out. And I like to coin a saying that I said years ago, which is adults are just big children making big decisions. That's literally it. So even the adults or the leaders or your parents or guardian, whoever it is that makes those decisions and it seems like it's so seamless, they're still figuring it out. And I think I had to become more okay with the fact that I'm still figuring out a lot of things. I don't know everything. I'm only 26. And I don't say that to be like have false humility or say that to put myself down, but I say that to say that I'm still navigating a lot. And another thing, which leads me to my next point, is I had to navigate being okay with the fact that I needed to make space for the fact that I wasn't always going to get things right, and I was still navigating a lot, still navigating friendships, what it's like to juggle a marriage at the age of 26, um, what it's like to step into leadership positions and being okay with being seen, which are big things that I didn't really see for myself or want for myself at a young age, but God very quickly made apparent in my life. Um, because of the journey that he has me on and the life that he has for me. Now, I don't want to get lost in my points because the key thing as to why I keep saying this is a start over, although it's not really a start over, is because I'm back. I'm back to YouTube. I'm back to creating content. If you haven't seen so far, please go and check out my shorts. So far, it's been things like fashion, makeup, hair, nails, all that kinds of stuff. But there's a lot that I want to start bringing people's attention to or waving a flag towards. Things like education, things like family, the family structure, things like marriage, things like being young people and what's available out there for us to help us. Things like navigating friendships, things like what's it like when you come from a family that's quite broken and you want to be the one to step out and make a change. Things like confronting things about our own characteristics and that we aren't really taught as a generation to look at anymore, but we're taught to embrace even when they impact people negatively. Those are the kinds of things that I want to address on my platform, in my content, on my channel. Um, and I want to do those things throughout weekly catch ups. Um, yeah, like I said, my nails are really bothering me. But also through my podcast, We Are Oracles podcast, also through my shorts. There's so many testimonies I want to speak about, but I don't want to do anything without God's blessing. So overall, I think there's a lot that I want to share. And I'll share a few brief things before I leave you guys to it because I have a wig to drop off. My friend's been waiting. But the biggest thing I think I've realized about coming back to YouTube is I'm still figuring it out, and that's okay. Still figuring out how much I want to share, what I'm not comfortable with sharing. I'm still figuring out how I want to show up on the internet because one day my children are going to see it. Mine and my husband's children are going to see it. I'm still figuring out what I'm okay with sharing because there's other people that are a part of my story who may not want their business on the internet or may not be so comfortable with people knowing certain things that they've experienced. But all that to say that that doesn't mean that I'm any less proud of how far God's brought me. It just means that through the reflection and the time I've had off of social media, but also the time I've had to reflect on who I am and am I okay with who I am, or do I want to change or God to change certain things about who I am? I've really become a lot more intentional about every single word I say and the impact it has not only on me but the people. So as I said, because I need to drop off that wig, child, I'm tired and the day has been going on. Um, I will be posting moving forward on my YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, maybe even Snapchat, definitely Pinterest, because I want to show you guys some of the looks I have. But I'll also be bringing you guys into different conversations that I've been having with my friends and my family. Like, what's it like to be a family orientated person, but then take a step back from your family when you realize that you experienced quite a traumatic childhood? I know it wasn't my foster parents because I don't want anyone to get the wrong end of the stick of anything I say. It was just because of different things I experienced growing up with a lot of young people who had also experienced traumatic things, or also on the beautiful side. Sorry, I should have said trigger warning. On the beautiful side of things, still navigating a relationship with my foster parents. And I don't really see them as foster parents. They're basically my biological parents. And what's it like being young and married without going into that? Because I don't have advice to share with people. I'm only basically 3 years in, because 3 years is around the corner by God's grace. Um, but just sharing the raw impacts of not being young people who focus on marriage because I wasn't, and that's by God's grace how I ended up getting married so young. But how to be more intentional with the people that we want to spend the rest of our lives with. Touching on friendship breakups and what that was like for me, meeting friends and making new friends at a young age, and again, what that was like for me. Touching on what am I comfortable with sharing? When is it oversharing? When are we trauma dumping? Like, what are those things and what does it look like? Touching on things like the education system. I can tell you firsthand my experience of the education system in the UK. And although for a lot of people, that come from different countries, they've had different experiences, and sometimes it's better than the ones they've experienced in their own home country. I can tell you firsthand that my experience wasn't the best, but I definitely had to fight to get my degree. Um, what was it like growing up in foster care in the late 90s, early 2000s? What was it like navigating being one of the only couples to get married so young? What's it like being wanting to break into or going to break into the fashion industry as a believer? What does modesty look like? What are all these things that go on within our generation, our society that nobody really wants to address, but we all know exist? That's the kind of content that I want. And lastly, just a few life updates. So one that's a bit random is now I'm 26, turning 27 in just a few months. I want to get rid of loads of my tattoos, but I also want to get some new ones. that was just something random I wanted to share, but I thought was quite interesting. As I am growing and developing and changing, I'm realizing that I don't really want to be all anymore. That was one of the protective layers that I wore due to the childhood that I experienced. I've been falling in love with being a lot more feminine these days and talking a lot softer. I don't get it twisted. I can still hold my own. I'm originally a North London baby, grew up in South London, so there's still a bit of edge to me. But I've realized that sometimes these things and the ways we carry ourselves are just simply trauma responses. Um, so getting rid of some of my tattoos has been a bit of a do I, don't I, should I, could I? And I realized that I still want tattoos, but I just don't want them where they are. And that the next generation look to me. And I've had so many questions about why did you get them? And by God's grace, they've been conversation starters with people that are believers and people that aren't believers and people that are even Muslim. But I'm at a place now where one day I want my children to look at me and be proud of the decisions that I made. Not because I'm living for them, but I'm living for God, but I'm also living with them in mind. Another thing, I'm now back in the education system, like I said. I worked for a charity for a bit, a Christian charity, and I enjoyed some of it. Certain parts of it I didn't enjoy. Great organization, just realized the time and place wasn't for me. So I'm now moving more into the space of um being back in the education system, because I know one day by God's grace people will know my name, but it won't be really my name. It will be the name of Jesus because of everything that God's called me to do in the education system. I've fallen back in love with just being me again. I think growing up I never really